workshop, so I can get headcount and ensure we have enough seats. So who's coming? 1, 2, that's it, 3, okay. No, okay, no worries. So yeah, so I'll be running the session just across. So once you finish with your drinks and the introductions, I'll get you to come over. And Deepa, do you want to do a final introduction or? No worries, all good. Okay, James, thank you very much for coming.
All right. I shall activate the device that lets me. Okay. All set, ready to go. Wow, thank you for coming. I love speaking in front of crowds. Last time I spoke in front of a crowd like this in New Zealand, I was feeling like I had the flu, and I almost canceled it. And then I said, I have to do it. All these people came out. And by the end of the talk, I felt great. I think it does something for your immune system to get up here and talk. Some kind of the nervousness like boils the viruses away. I don't know what it is. But I'm looking forward to that again, you know, to be infused with the health molecules of public speaking. Recommend it. I want to talk about test coaching. I want to talk about some of the methods that I have developed, and in cooperation with Anne-Marie Charrett, who I've known for 9 years, and last week I learned to pronounce her last name. It's Charrett, apparently. So I have to apologize to everyone that I've ever introduced her to for getting her name wrong for 9 years. She never actually told me that I was mispronouncing it. She's so nice. That's how nice she is. But Anne-Marie came to me in 2010 after I had announced that I wanted to become the best online test coach in the world. I like to announce that I want to be the best at something that no one else is trying to do, because it's a pretty short road to the top. It's very nice to be able to win all the world championships and all that. Well, she found out I was doing that and I was practicing. I just said, anyone, come to me. I'll give you free test coaching because I need to practice. I need to practice my test coaching techniques and learn the techniques and innovate in this. In order to be good at this, you must practice. So then Anne-Marie found out I was doing that. She said, I want to learn to test coach too. And we just became pals, and we've been working very slowly on this book. Some of the materials for which you can access, not just the slides for this presentation, but also 3 other documents in a single PDF, including a somewhat detailed guide to one of the diagrams I'm going to show you that's really complicated in this thing. So there's a bunch of materials available for you. Let's get going. Credibility. It's the number one thing you need as a tester is credibility. You know why you need credibility as a tester? Because you got nothing else. What do developers have? You would say, how do I know you're a good developer? They go, you know that thing called eBay? I wrote it. You know, I mean, you just point at your code, point at your game, point at your stuff. There's my code. Read it and weep. But testers, we don't have that. We have, how do I know you're a good tester? Because I learned something the other day that's now obsolete because a new build came out. Everything we do is ephemeral. Testers need to all be Buddhists and just come to terms with the fact that life is pain and you must give up attachments to bug reports, for they are as dust in the wind. All they are is dust in the wind, with little ID numbers, deferred, closed. What do we need? We need credibility. Credibility compensates for the fact that we have nothing to show for our work. We need to convince people that we're smart, we're capable, that when we say this is probably a bug, maybe you should probably listen. I mean, at least listen. You don't have to agree, but listen. When I write a bug report and someone knows I wrote a bug report, I want them to be eager to read it, like a new novel from James Michener. So I got to develop my credibility. And I want, before I talk about some of the coaching things, I just want to talk about some different kinds of credibility or different aspects of credibility that we develop in our professional existence. Reputation. Reputation. There are different kinds of reputation. I have a public reputation. A lot of testers do not have a public reputation. A public reputation has some real pros and cons. It's a double-edged sword. But I like having a public reputation because I'm recklessly public anyway. That's fits my personality to be. I always wanted to get up and speak. I wanted to be an actor and a lumberjack. I didn't want to do this testing stuff. But I found in testing that I can achieve a public reputation. And one reason why you might want to consider getting a public reputation, international public reputation as a tester, is it is a way to hold yourself to a very high standard. Because if I lower my standards and people find out, I will be publicly eviscerated. But if you have no public reputation, you can lower your standards and no one notices, and you don't get in any trouble. And so I want to be held to a very high standard, so I kind of like it that I'm very, very out there making all these claims about what a tester should be, because I want 1,000 other testers, 5,000 other testers watching me like a hawk to make sure I live up to the standards that I'm saying everybody else should live up to. I like that. I feel comfortable with that. So your reputation, what do I mean by that is the stories people tell about you, that's your reputation. You want to get people telling stories about you that are good stories. A lot of things feed into that. One is signals. Signals also help your credibility. Social signaling is essentially a very simple idea. Look at my glasses. My glasses are signaling something to you right now. What are they telling you? They're telling you I'm super smart. You're not wearing thick glasses, but I am. Every movie you've ever seen has told you the guys with the thick glasses, they're the ones that invent the time machines. The ones without the glasses they fight off the bad guys, so the guy who invented the time machine can get there at the last minute and they can save the girl and all that, but the guy with the glasses, he's the guy who invents the time machine. So all those movies are just, right, they're pushing you. They're pushing you to just look to people who look like me with these glasses to tell you the things that you need to know. So my wife told me I should get these thick glasses. She said I look smarter in them. I just said, okay, that's all right, I'll do that. And way better than wire rims at getting people to listen to me and take me seriously. As testers, we need to learn how to signal to developers that they should take us seriously, to signal to management that they should listen to our test reporting. And this has to do with our vocabulary, our diction, the tone of our voice when we speak, lots of little signals that we give out that cause people to unconsciously come to an opinion about who we are in just a few seconds. Just a few seconds. Performance. The ability to demonstrate that you know what you're doing. Someone says, show me how to do that. Show me you know what you're doing. And to be able to say, why, of course. Would you like me to juggle 5 balls and stand on my head while writing that test plan? Because I can do that too. I practice demonstrating. Of course, I'm in the business of training testers. I do a lot of speaking and all that, so I have to be ready to demonstrate what I'm doing at any given moment. That's how I'm able to market my stuff and be taken seriously anyway. But even for the workaday tester, be ready to perform, to show what you know how to do. You need friends. Friends who talk about you. Friends who say, yeah, I know she doesn't talk much, but she's really smart, trust me. The network, we're doing it right now. We're networking with each other right now, getting to know each other. We're already plugged into the idea that we need friends. We need to know people, they need to know us, so that our reputation within the local community or farther than that helps take care of us. And finally, we need a portfolio. testers ought to have a portfolio of their work. This is a problem in our industry because so much of what we do is secret. So I have a formal test procedure that I wrote. It's 26 pages long that I wish I could publish. But it's for this medical device, and they'd be really nervous if I publish exactly how they test this thing, and they haven't given me permission to do it, so I'm just stuck. But I'm proud of it. I want to put it out there for other people to see. So what that means is, in order for me to develop a portfolio that I can share with anyone else, I have to make up my own test projects, create stuff for that, do test plans, and then share that stuff so that it's not secret. I also have a few clients that let me do stuff for them, and then they let me publish it. So that's really cool. A few of my clients haven't figured out that they really probably shouldn't have me do that yet. They haven't told me to stop doing it anyway. One of them doesn't pay me at all, and that's the way she pays me, is by letting me turn whatever I do for her, I turn it into a little part of a class and do a little PowerPoint on it. It becomes more class material, so I get something out of it, apart from the fact that she's very nice and sweet talks me into doing all this work for her. So there you go. We got signals, performance, friends, portfolio, reputation. I want to talk about test coaching. Test coaches help you develop all these things. Here's coaching, all right? It goes like this. You got the coach, and you got the student. Each person in this equation, you've got skills, you've got knowledge, and you have a standing in the community, whether it's a very, very local community or a broader community. And the kind of coaching that I do expertise-based coaching. This whole other kind of coaching, and I think there's even like an international society of coaches that I don't have anything to do with them. I think what they do is talk about the super generic coaching where anybody can coach anybody else to do anything, kind of a Tony Robbins kind of coaching thing. I'm not comfortable with that. I like to coach somebody in something that I know how to do, and I'm helping them learn that. It's not exactly training. It's coaching. The difference between training and coaching is that in coaching, you have somebody do the thing that they're trying to learn, and then you nudge them to do it a little better. Training, there's the idea that they don't know how to do it, and you have to give them all the skills. So the kind of thing I like to do is sort of halfway, somewhat training, but expertise-based coaching, which means that the coach in my system is going to have a little more standing in the community at least, or more skills than the person they're coaching. Although over time, that evens out, and the coach-student relationship becomes a peer-to-peer sharing. That's the goal. That's what happened between me and Anne-Marie Charrett. She came to me as a student of my coaching method, and now we're co-equal peers that trade ideas back and forth, and that process took a couple of years to work through to where at least I feel that we're equals, and I think she feels that way too. Although maybe she's just too afraid to tell me what she really thinks. I never know. Here's how the coaching works. Nice, simple concept here. So you've got feelings here. Oh, sorry, I went off the screen a little bit. Feelings. Let me show you a little bit more about that. Feelings. It's all about feelings. Feelings are a sort of fog, a sort of sentient fog that settles over the whole proceedings. If I'm coaching someone and I ignore the feelings part, or if I can't deal with the feelings part, nothing important is going to get done, at least not on purpose. I've got to take control of that. I've got to deal with that. Feelings is the atmosphere through which all the intellectual stuff happens. And what I find is that so many people are so smart, and they don't believe it. They don't believe they're smart. They believe they're stupid. Maybe because their teachers always told them that they couldn't do things. I don't know what it is. I find it's a little more trouble. I have a little more trouble with this among women than among men. Men seem to me, as I deal with them, to be more likely to be recklessly confident, overconfident, and I have to deal with that. And I know how to deal with that because I'm exactly like that myself, always recklessly overconfident. I can do anything. I was kind of brought up in the I can do anything kind of mode. But then I come across a lot of, especially women, who are really talented, but they're always like, oh, I probably can't do it, and I'm sorry, I'm not better. And I watch what they're doing, and my job is to give them good news. You deserve to be a lot more confident than you are. Either way, I've got to deal with the feeling stuff so that they can get down to the business of actually doing good testing. So, first thing, if you want to do test coaching, is get used to wading through great bubble gum masses of feelings that will feel like you're slowing you down and distracting you, but you've got to do it. You can't just say, put all your feelings aside and just think about this exercise, because then people will feel even stupider, and then they will give up even quicker than they otherwise would. I have found learning deep stuff, like testing, intellectual stuff, is driven by struggle. Without struggle, only shallow learning happens. So this is what I remember from school. I remember that they would talk about something like, blah, 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 this is how you do it. Any questions? Now try it. Here's the test. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. I have completely reversed that. Now, I didn't think of doing this myself. I went to a class called Problem Solving Leadership in 1995, where Jerry Weinberg had designed this 5-day experience where he just plunged groups of people into very difficult to solve problems, and didn't tell them how to solve them, and didn't give them enough time to solve them. And then at the end, he said, well, you could have done this. You could have done this. You could have done this. Oh. And what I noticed is that after the struggling process, I would listen raptly as the instructor said, you could have done this. You could have, I could have done that. Oh, what else could I have done? Oh, tell me more. Before, if he had said it at the beginning, I might have said, oh, that's obvious. Oh, sure, I'm sure I would have thought of that. And I wouldn't really have listened. But reversing it, I noticed, pumped up my engagement and my motivation tremendously. So now I learned from that, and I do mostly that kind of thing when I'm doing this. I call this the sale power principle from my book, Secrets of a Buccaneer Scholar, where I talk about self-education, which is that it's like you have sales, and you need to have wind in your sails. I need to put pressure on my students. If I don't put enough pressure, they won't get motivated. If I put too much pressure on them, they will collapse. So I need to feel the pressure and their reaction to the pressure. And when I see signs that they're wavering, I drop back on the pressure. I give them some more encouragement, give them some more praise, pick something that they did well and make a big deal out of it so that they can start feeling more confident. Then I raise the pressure again. So it is very much like sailing a boat, actually, when you're coaching. You're feeling the different forces coming together, and you're trying not to overstress your little craft. So I often, in my method, which is essentially a Socratic process, instead of saying, okay, here's how to test, I'll just say, go test that website and come back to me and tell me about it. Oh, well, I don't know how to test it. Okay, well, just figure something out. Do something. Spend 30 minutes. And then come back and tell me what you did. And whatever they did, we start from there. Because I didn't tell them how to do any of this stuff, I see where their biases are. I see where their preconceptions are. I see what they do and what they don't do. So I like to do a lot of stuff from a blank sheet of paper, not giving anything away at first. However, sometimes when someone doesn't have enough confidence in themselves, you do this to them and they will collapse immediately. This happened to me 2 days ago. Someone came to me and said, I want to get into the testing field. okay, go to this site and test it. And she came back with this report, and almost all of the report was talking in bullet items about how bad she was, how stupid she was, how this obviously testing is not for her, and she shouldn't even have come to bid to begin with. And one bullet item was actually about the product that I asked her to test. One little bullet item. Oh, I saw this drop-down box, and all the rest of it was, I just did a terrible job. So I think I should have given her maybe a little more explicit external structure, maybe a smaller problem. I miscalculated the feeling dynamic in this case. And at the end of her little report, she said, oh, I shouldn't be a tester, and that's the last I heard from her. I feel really bad about that. But I bet you she's one of these women who's like really smart, and she's always been told that she isn't smart. It's one of those deals, I bet. You know, because this lack of ego, insufficient ego, is a problem that I commonly see in that case. Let me demonstrate what I'm talking about. This is one of my little exercises. This is a test pattern, obviously. How many tests are in this test pattern? That's the question that I ask testers. Look at this and tell me how many tests are in this test pattern. And I give them some time to work that out, and we have a little discussion about that. Just give it a little bit of a try right now. I'll give it a little more detailed introduction. This is called a test pattern. This is an official test pattern from an IEEE standard, and this test pattern has special shapes in it that are for testing. And so I want you to look at this and tell me how many tests are in this test pattern. Go ahead. So that would be my entire introduction. I don't say how to count tests and test patterns. I don't say anything about how to analyze this. I just give it just like that. Now, what happens to you? Think about it now. What happens to you when you encounter this problem and you're looking at this? You might have a sense of being overwhelmed. How do I even start to count this? There's so many things. Which things am I supposed to count? What is a test anyway? What counts as a test? Is the outside a test? Is the whole thing a test? Is each sub thing a test? Do you count them? How do you count things that are in a hierarchy anyway? Do you just count the leaf nodes and count them up? Or where does one test begin and the other one end? All these little things have got to be going through your mind when you look at this. And you have to cope with those feelings. And maybe your first feeling is a little bit of panic, and maybe, I shouldn't be here, I shouldn't be doing this. How many tests are in this test pattern, Catherine? You can't answer just yet.
I can't answer because I don't know what the stakeholder wants to do.
She says she can't answer because she doesn't know what the stakeholder wants her to test. That's interesting. So do you have a question for me, Catherine?
Yeah, I do.
What's your question? I'll repeat it.
What's my primary mission for testing?
This is what's her primary? She's asking, what is her primary mission for testing with this test pattern? This is an IEEE standard test pattern for testing imaging systems such as cameras, digital cameras. That's what this is for. But how does that help you answer the question? How many tests are in the test pattern? And Catherine says the answer is it gives her more questions to ask. Okay, now let me tell you what I've concluded just from this little interaction with Catherine. Notice what she did not say. She didn't say 27. A lot of people say stuff like that. 27? 16? 10? 106? Sometimes they make it a question like that, like, I'm just going to guess until you say yes, and we can get out of this mess. That's not what Catherine did. Notice what Catherine did. Catherine is not answering my question. Catherine is reaching out to get information that she needs to understand the problem. That's telling me a lot about what kind of thinker she is. Now, here's what I might do with Catherine if I were actually coaching her in this. I might decide to up the pressure on her and see if she's just stalling or if she has a method to her madness. So I might say, come on, Catherine, just count the tests. What difference does it make what the mission is? I just want you to know, to tell me how many tests are here. Can you just give me a straight answer to a straight question? There, that's called pressurizing. Pressurizing. So I turn on the pressure. When I do this online over Skype text, it's a bit more dangerous because I can't quite see how people are going to react. I hope for the best. It's a little better person to person because I can watch her face, see if she seems upset. I picked on Catherine here because I know Catherine, so I know she's tough. So I feel safe pressurizing her right now. So I just put the pressure on you. What's your answer, Catherine?
No, I'm not going to answer that question.
No, I'm not going to answer that question at all. So what she's teaching me about here is her resistance to being bullied or hurried. And she's telling me that the integrity of her intellectual process is more important to her than pleasing some guy yelling at her. All right, so you see what I'm saying? This is the kind of thing that I do. And you have to learn to do this and imagine 26 different possible responses that the person could be making, and you make meaning from what they say and what they don't say, and you're trying, it's a lot, you have to practice this, because I'm trying to monitor like 4 different levels of her demeanor all at the same time. Okay, I'm going to speed to the end on this, Catherine. Tests are not things. They're not objects. They're not artifacts. So there are no tests in this. And I think you know there are no tests in this. I think you rightly resisted looking for tests in here. What there is here is test data. Test data is not the same thing as a test. A test is a performance. A test is a thought process. So it seems to me that you can have any number of tests, any number of testing performances, testing processes, which make use of any number of things on this. But for what it's worth, I got the IEEE standard, I have it for this, and the IEEE standard, I believe, numbers as 27 the distinct number of elements that it lists as being useful for specific kinds of testing, which is not the same thing as saying how many tests. But I found it interesting, I think when I did this with Anne-Marie, she said, I think 27. And I thought, have you read the standard? Like, no, she counted the different subgroups and came up with the same number as was in the standard. I was freaked out, like, wow. I haven't even tried to do that, by the way, so I don't even know. I haven't counted that way. I just looked at the standard itself. So a lot of what I do is I create some interesting intellectual challenges where you can answer in a variety of ways, and then I twist that or turn that into whatever kind of point I'm trying to make. Maybe in this case, I'm trying to make the point that a test is a thought process and not a thing. It's not a philosopher's stone that sits there and you can point to it and say, that's a stone. It's not like that. And then I can start teaching about testing from there. Another exercise that I use a lot is called the dice game. It's played with dice. I use this in my class all the time. And it is a portable, replayable, test design learning game. And it's an example of what's called an heirloom exercise. An heirloom exercise is any exercise that you've done with a lot of people so that you've seen how lots of different people have reacted to it. And the more people that have done one exercise that you have seen, the more you can help the next person who's doing that exercise. Because you can say to them, when they go, well, there's only one possible way to do it. You can go, well, I remember in Provo, Utah, when the class there did it in a totally different way. Let me tell you about the story of that. Oh, I remember someone who didn't see a wall there, just saw all kinds of windows to open and didn't ask for permission and just went ahead and did this very different thing that you might not have thought was allowed. Let me tell you the story of that. So with every additional experience with an exercise that you might come up with, that you might use in test coaching, you gain something that no one else can have, which is the perspective of seeing all those people. And that makes you a kind of special expert in that exercise. So I have a number of exercises that I carefully protect the various secrets that are inside the exercises, not because I don't want people to know the secrets, but because if I let the secrets out, then the new people coming to do that exercise would already be clued in, and my benchmark of all the other people who've done the exercise would be useless because the spoilers would already be out there. So you can have games, you can have specific things that you have people test. You can have thought experiments. Another thing that you need to have if you're going to be a really effective test coach is you need a syllabus of some kind. You need a set of things that are the different subject areas, different kinds of skills that you need to tell them about. So when someone comes to you and says, I want to get test coached, what is your system, or what are all the things I have to do? Over time, you can let them know about that roadmap. So I've developed this roadmap. This is my own roadmap of my own testing skill, all the different subjects that I find useful to study. And as I'm trying to help someone become a well-rounded tester, I evaluate them in each of these areas. See, I'm not an expert at any of these things. I'm not an expert at probability, but I can use probability theory in lots of basic ways that testers need to use them. And if someone says, well, I really want to be better at combinatoric testing, for instance, well, I don't need to be an expert in combinatorics in order to come up with an exercise in combinational testing and give it to them and work through various issues. I just need to be good enough at that in each of these areas to be functional in it. And then the cool thing is that if I help somebody by coaching them in a particular area, I'm automatically going to get smarter in that area because I prepare for my coaching. I make sure that I look up the things I need to look up, get the books I need to get before I go into coaching someone in any given area so that I'm more prepared. So in other words, test coaching drives your own education on coaching. And that is the number one reason I recommend doing test coaching. It's the most fun way to learn to be a great tester, is to coach others in testing. You constantly get to compare yourself to other people too, in the guise of a coach, so that you can tell if where the holes are in your own education. Because when someone says, I heard about this thing called a test oracle, can you explain that to me, please? And you go, give me a couple of hours, and then you run off and do the research, and then you're able to say, yes, I had a blood sugar thing. I just had to have some food. Now I'm ready to tell you about test oracles, all about test oracles. Let's go. You're such an expert. Yes, I'm an expert just in time, just in time. It drives your own self-study because you're trying to impress your student at how good you are as a test coach. Oh yes, I forgot that I put this build in there. Let's zoom in. General systems thinking is one of the areas. Applied epistemology, which is a fancy way to talk about science, reasoning, logic, all that kind of thing. Research design, scientific experiments. And cognitive science is a big part of testing too. Understanding the cognitive limitations that we have as testers. Understanding how users think, how they interact with user interfaces. Understanding tacit knowledge, learning theory, task analysis. Mathematics, these are the different areas of mathematics that I find helpful to me as a tester. Lots of areas of mathematics aren't necessarily important for testing, but statistics, combinatorics, set theory, information theory, I find often crops up when I'm trying to do deep testing. Testing folklore, this is the stuff that they put in testing books that is almost always wrong, but it's still useful to know what the testing folklore is so that you can comment on it. All different kinds of communication, rhetoric, storytelling, tester self-defense, of course, verbal self-defense for testers is something I specialize in. Of course, technology. Technology in general. I need to be something of a technologist in order to test technology. The dynamics of software projects, and lots of stuff about self-management, including, and this is very important for testers, ethics. The ethics of software testing. What happens if my management wants me to do something or say something that I think is going to mislead them? What if they really want me to mislead them? What if they say, here's a lot of money, please tell sweet lies to me? Is it ethical for me to do that? I just want to remind people the difference between a doctor and a drug dealer. And the difference is customer service. The drug dealer cares about customer service, and the doctor has other priorities. That's the difference. The drug dealer says anything to please the customer. You want that drug? Sure. And the doctor says, no, you can't have the propofol. No, the OxyContin is staying in the back. I'm not going to bring that out just because I see the money. No. Go see the drug dealer if you want that stuff. And the tester is more like the doctor. Just because my client says, I'll pay you, doesn't mean I'm going to give them charts and graphs that make it look like I've tested when I feel like I haven't. I also have another document, and this document is in the notes in the PDF that you'll download if you follow the link at the top of the materials, called the Exploratory Testing Dynamics document. This is a list of skills and elements of testing from an exploratory perspective especially. It all has to get rewritten because we no longer use the term exploratory testing in the rapid software testing world. We now say all testing is exploratory, so we're trying to retire the term. And so all this stuff has to get rewritten, and I got to add some more stuff in. But there's still lots of great stuff in there. Lots of great stuff in there about the different things that testers do. Now, if you're test coaching and you're trying to think, what kinds of skills or what kinds of things should I be looking at in the person I'm coaching to help them get better, it helps to have a big list of really specific skills. This document has a big list of really specific skills. And you can spot, with the help of this document, if someone is strangely reticent to do a certain kind of thing in testing. One of the skills, for instance, that is listed is the ability to abandon ideas. And sometimes I come across testers who cannot abandon ideas. They think that everything they've ever done must be saved. They're the equivalent of these hoarders who would just pile up newspapers. I might need that someday. Every test case gets recorded and saved. That sort of thing. And sometimes I need to do exercises that will force someone to delete old ideas. To say, it's okay, let go, it's over, let it go. Bury those test cases deep in the backyard. Here are the main skills that I focus on when I'm coaching. Rapid technical self-education is a big part of it. The ability to pursue an inquiry. Here's a big one, test framing. Now, you've probably never heard of test framing before. It's a very important testing skill, and yet you probably haven't heard of it. You know why? Because I made that name up. And I'm forced to make a lot of names up, because a lot of testing skills have never been named before I came along and needed to talk about them. So I'll tell you right now what test framing is. But I want you to know that any of the names that I use, any of the terms that I use, you can change them. You can make your own names for these things. I'm not here standing here as an authority saying, I named it, now everyone has to call it what I call it. You know the guy who discovered oxygen? You know who that was? Joseph Priestley? Huh? Does anyone know that? Joseph Priestley discovered oxygen way back when. He didn't call it oxygen. He called it dephlogisticated air. That didn't catch on. His rival, his great rival Lavoisier, said, phlogiston theory is wrong. I'm not going to call it dephlogisticated air, and he's the one who named it oxygen. It's a little fun fact for you there. So maybe my names aren't going to work for you. It's all right. You're going to change them then. It's up to you. The right names will be seized upon on a de facto basis by the community when they resonate. That's how the open marketplace works. Test framing. Test framing is the ability to take anything that you are doing as a tester, anything at all, and tell me how it relates to your mission and the business you are serving. Tell me why you had to do that test right now. Tell me why you had to press that key right now. Tell me a story that connects that key press on that test at that moment all the way up to the people that you serve and the reason why you were hired. If you can find the logical connections and you never say, I don't know, it's just what we do, then you are doing good test framing. Bad test framing is when you say, shut up, I just do what I'm told. That's a horrible way to explain why you do what you do. You know, I just live in this room and people slip things under a door and I put a mark on them that I was told to put and then I push them out the other end. That's my job. Well, not if you're a responsible intellectual. If you're a responsible intellectual, then you have a model in your mind of why you're doing what you're doing, and if circumstances change, you'll automatically know you have to change what you're doing to still be doing a good job. That's what an adult technical professional, not a child technical professional, but an adult does. So that's test framing. And that wasn't named. I wasn't aware of anyone calling that a skill. I guess you could say test reporting, maybe, but test reporting is more about reporting about the outcomes of your testing rather than any bit of your process. Test narration, experiment design, factoring. Maybe you haven't heard of test factoring, but you do it. Test factoring is the identification of variables that you might want to control or observe in the course of your testing. The identification of variables. So when I'm factoring, I'm analyzing a product, looking at all the factors, all the variables, all the dimensions that I'm going to need to work with in my testing. And I call that factoring. Now, other people call it test design, but test design is too vague. Test design includes a whole bunch of other stuff. So in my coaching, I found the need to come up with specific terms for specific kinds of skills that people need. I'm not done with this process, and I welcome anyone else becoming involved in this process and sharing with me the words you use for specific testing skills. I hope you will do that. And then I'll blog about them and get all the credit. That's great. People who blog get the reputation. We experience a number of syndromes as we coach, and we've begun to name them, Anne-Marie and I. There's overconfidence, underconfidence. Commonly see smart people are afraid of looking stupid. That's very common in our industry. I have to do a lot of things right up front to get people to get over that fear. Now, I'm a really smart guy. I can recite 400 digits of pi right now. If anybody challenges me to do it, I will do it. Right now. Now, that doesn't mean I'm smart, but you think it means that I'm smart. Every movie you've ever seen tells you it should mean that I'm a genius if I can memorize 400 digits. And actually, my record is 1,132, but I'm a little out of practice. So I got 400 yesterday in my little app, and so I'm confident I got 400. But the thing is that, I'm a smart guy. I'm good at IQ tests. But I suffered horribly in my youth from feeling I'm never smart enough. I'm never smart enough. And I needed a mentor. I needed the right teacher at the right time in my early 20s to come along and say, here's how to escape from that horrible feeling that you're not smart enough. And there's an escape. There's a way out. And I know it. I can share it with you. If you have that problem yourself, come see me. I will cure you of it. I am very confident of this. I was cured of it. I know how I was cured. I believe I've cured other people of it since then. I'm happy to help. It's a terrible, painful condition when you're constantly thinking, I'll never be smart enough. I'll never be smart enough. So I've got to deal with that. And I've got my techniques for dealing with that. People who are afraid of mathematics, people who are afraid of asking questions. And here's another one, shallowness syndrome. This is probably the single biggest one that we deal with, shallowness syndrome. Here's an example of shallowness syndrome at work. Okay, I'm trying to, just a little Socratic questioning of a tester, talking about testing a client-server product. He wants to learn about testing web applications, and I'm kind of finding out where his technical level is. So I tell him about an application like eBay, and then I say, all right, so if you take the scroll bar and you move it up and down really fast, will that stress the server? He says, no, it will not. That is correct. That is correct. But I have to ask him why. Why won't it stress the server? Oh. No idea. You've never faced the situation. What does that have to do with anything? So I went from thinking, all right, so at least he knows what a browser is and how it works, to thinking, has he ever used a computer? This is a frightening thing for me. So I don't want to give an emoticon that is of me spitting out my coffee. You want to play it cool. Sometimes the problem is me dealing with my own feelings. I once had to leave a class that I was in the midst of teaching to compose myself. I couldn't continue because I found out that 3 people in my class had never copied files before. They had no idea what I meant when I said, copy the files from this USB to your hard drive. And they're like, what is copying files? What is that? And I'm like, you're in a testing class and you don't know how to copy files? And I was going to say something really sarcastic, and I must stop. I've got to leave the room. So I had to leave the room and pace for a little bit. And okay, these are nice ladies. Their company has not prepared them for this, but they are nice ladies and might be very smart ladies. They just don't know this technical thing. Come on, breathe. Walk in there and be a good person, James. So I got my composure back, and it was okay. It was okay in the end, and they had a good time in the class. I think they had a good time in the class because one of them handed me my book to sign, so if she was really mad at me, then probably wouldn't have done that. That's my only indication. Okay, so I said, well, how do you know? How do you know that it won't stress the server? And his reply was, my mind says so. Okay, so I reply, find out from your mind. I'm trying to break through the shallowness. That's what I'm trying to do, break through the shallowness. So sometimes I do it like a jackhammer, just like, you can't give me a vague answer. We call it, it's a coaching pattern we call drive to detail. Drive to detail. I want details. I'm not going to let you go until you tell me specifics. What are you talking about? And ultimately, if they can't give me specifics, then what I'm going to do is I will make an offer. I'll say, would you like me to demonstrate what a good answer to this question might be? And they almost always say, oh yes, please. Please demonstrate. And then I get a chance to perform, and they get to see that, and maybe they're going to learn from that, and then we try it again. Maybe we try it again tomorrow or the next coaching session. But we got to break through. Shallowness is a very dangerous thing. There are lots of people in our industry who they just want to get the job so that they can support their family, and I think that's fine. They should be able to support their family. But it's as if it's pretty okay with them to support their family and never seriously know what they're doing. So I want to break through that and touch their pride and get them to like this idea of feeling pride in themselves, pride in what they know, pride in their own work. And once I get them hooked on the drug of feeling self-respect, then they're going to do all the rest of the work for me. They're going to teach themselves testing, and I'm just going to facilitate that process. This is Anne-Marie and mine, our coaching space reference document, which tells all the things we're monitoring whenever we're coaching. We have tried using this document during live coaching. It's really hard to do that because it's so complicated. So what we do is we study it before and discuss it with each other before our big coaching events, and in between the coaching sessions we study this and we debrief with this. And then when we're actually coaching, we're not using this. We're using our minds. But then we go back to this at the end to debrief. What this shows, I should say, what this shows is there's the student, there's the coach. The coach has a model of the student has a model of the coach. The coach has a context to self-image, aspirations, expectations, ability, demeanor. The student has context, self-image, aspirations, expectations, ability, demeanor. As a coach, I'm trying to understand all these elements of the person that I am coaching. And I'm trying to display these so that they can understand where I'm coming from and who I am. I'm operating through some media here. Usually it's text, but it might be face-to-face. It might be video. These things in the middle are what we call the coaching space, though. And in the middle, what we have is direction. When I coach somebody, I give them something to do. I assign them a task. I see what happens. If they immediately get stuck, then I will assist or explain or do whatever I can to get them rolling. I'm trying to kick them a little to get them rolling downhill and then watch them go faster and faster and run into things and do what they do. Once they start doing something, I explore what happens. I do that in 3 dimensions. I look for positive things. Oh, that was nice. Negative things. Uh-oh. And neutral things. There's lots of neutral things that are not bad or good. They're just things that they did and ways that they approached it. And if I see something positive, I want to notice that, explore it, support it. And the major method that I use that I think is very important is you can't just say, and Gil, I'm coaching you right now, so I'm going to use you as an example. I can't just say to Gil, that was good. I like that. What I need to say to him is, I like that, and then I need to say, it's not normal for people to do well on that particular thing. That's an unusual thing. And then I need to say how it could have been worse. Otherwise, Gil's not going to believe me. He's just going to think I'm flattering him. To have someone not think you're just flattering them, you're just trying to say nice things because you're nice, you have to be specific about why something is good, how it could have been bad, and that it was nice, why it was nice, that it wasn't bad, and maybe even give examples of other people you've seen, other kinds of people who have not done so well at that, and then they really go, oh, I guess that was good, and they really accept that. They take it in as information about themselves. I'm looking for that all the time as I'm coaching, I'm constantly scanning. I need that because I can never tell a lie. People can tell if you're faking it, if you don't really mean that it's good. So I have to try really hard to find something that is genuinely good, even if they do 20 bad things. I want to find the good thing, and I want to focus on that. I'm also going to pick something that might be not so good, explore it, challenge it, and help them develop some better options. I might see what they're doing, try to put it into words, get them to put it into words. Tell me the process you use to do that. Might be something that I said. Yesterday I was having Gil make a picture of what testing is. And I listened to him narrate his process of thinking that through. It was wonderfully useful for me. That's one of the bits of homework that you have, Gil, which is going to be totally spoiled by what I'm about to show you, actually, because I've already shown you some stuff about that. So I hope you erase your mind. Try to freshen your mind. Don't take any notes. and then try to make a picture of testing, and whatever sticks in your head is what should stick in your head from this, but don't make any notes, right? Okay, good. In fact, this is an example, Gil, of if I ask you to do a picture of testing, this is a picture of test coaching. This is an example of a diagram which answers the question, what would be a picture of test coaching? The middle thing here, the central thing, is energy. I'm constantly monitoring and managing energy when I coach. Now, energy is not a mystical concept. It could be if you want, I guess, but for me, it's not a mystical concept. For me, energy is just another word for motivation. Do the people want to do it, or do they not want to do it? Are they happy to be there, or are they not happy to be there? Are they eager, or are they not eager? That's what I mean by energy. And if you have good energy over time, that builds trust. Once you have enough trust, you can push, you can ask the student to do harder and harder things because they trust you that you're not making them waste their time. One of the things that people are going to wonder if you don't have enough credibility as a coach is this a waste of time, or is it really going to help me? When I am managing energy, I may coach more passively, or I may coach actively. Passively is just sitting back and taking it in and watching what's happening and going, I see, And active coaching is more like questioning, why are you doing it that way? What do you think about this? And that would be more active coaching. Sometimes I need to inspire people. Sometimes I need to bring them to earth because they're over-inspired. They have inspiration sickness, and they need to be grounded. Sometimes people are way too grounded, and they need to realize that they can reach for the skies, and I have to blast them off the earth. Sometimes I'm going to push and create more pressure. Sometimes I'm going to very strongly release the pressure to say, that's fine, you're doing good, everything's okay, we're right on track, relax, relax. And sometimes I say, that's not good enough, Gil, that's not good enough. Now why might I pressure my friend Gil instead of relaxing? Maybe I have analyzed him and I realized Gil wants to be pushed. He's an Israeli soldier. He wants to be pushed. He wants me to punch him in the face and see that he doesn't flinch. Sometimes I see a personality and I feel like that's what this guy wants to be taken to the limit because he wants to explore his limits. And other times you have just the opposite. You have someone who's just like a baby deer ready to run away, and so we're going to take it real slow. We're going to build up the confidence quite a lot before we start putting on the pressure. We need lots of success experiences. Like if someone's new to this learning process, then that's what they're going to need. If someone's already a self-education expert, Gil is already an expert in photography, he already knows what it means to be good at this stuff, then he's probably going to say, skip the baby deer stuff and come at me like a bear, and we'll have it out. Not that you said that to me, Gil, but I'm just feeling, that's my feeling I have of you. I have this feeling that you think you're tough and you want me to treat you that way, and so if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but that's the impression you gave me. And here's a bunch of things that I'm watching. All throughout each coaching session, I'm watching. You might wonder, what do you watch for, Coach? This is exactly what I watch for. I look at how you speak about things in a general way. I look at how you speak about details. I notice whether you use details or whether you gloss over everything. I notice whether you only talk about details and never step back and give me the big picture. I notice those things and I try to make meaning of them. I notice whether you use technical terms or generic dictionary words. I notice whether you say, oh, here, let me explain it this way, and open up a notebook and make a picture. Not many people make pictures. So what's your use of visuals? I listen to the quality of the narrative. Some people are better at storytelling than others. What heuristics and tools are you using? How do you react when I pressure you? In the last 2 weeks, I taught in 2 classes, and in both classes, there were these young Indian ladies who looked very similar. at least to me. Look at similar age, one's right there. Similar age, similar sounding to me, similar education, I think. And what was fascinating to me is they put both of them on the spot in the middle of the classroom. And I did the same thing to both of them, which is at one point I moved toward them and I raised my voice. And I insisted, I need something. And one of them backed up and actually hit her head on the window. And I noticed that and I said, okay. So here's someone who doesn't have a lot of practice dealing with high pressure situations. I need to be more careful. I need to take the pressure off right now. I'm right near the limit. That's good. Being near the limit is okay. Remember, it's like sailing a boat. Near the limit, but not over the limit. And the other one, sitting right there, she didn't move at all. She was a rock. She must have had a lot of experience dealing with pressure, dealing with people being demanding. Because I said, you put something in your test report that wasn't true. What do you have to say for yourself? Well, I'm very sorry. We shall rectify this immediately, sir. And she just stood her ground. And what was interesting is she was right in the middle of the room, and I was on the edge. She owned the whole space. I noticed that when I have students that take control of the space, or students that move to the corner. That's interesting to me. I noticed that because that tells me how they feel about pressure. And now I believe that all these people can be brought to a position of strength where they will be happy to stand in the middle and deal with all this. But it takes practice. It takes practice. No one gets there immediately. So when I see someone who's holding their ground and all that, I say things like, you have experience leading people, don't you? You have had training. The force is strong with you. You know, I say stuff like that. And they go, oh, really? Yes, I have. How did you know? Like, it really shows. The work you've done up to now, it really shows. Once in a while, someone says, no, I have no experience at all. And I just go, I don't really believe you. I don't think you can just be born able to control a room the way you're obviously doing it. But it's okay. Maybe you have like a secret spy life and you can't, it's your deep cover. You're under deep cover and you can't admit that you have had CIA training or whatever it is that makes you able to be so confident standing in front of people. It's all right. I won't push you, Jason Bourne. But usually I'm right because I deal with a lot of these people and I know that the ability to stand up confidently in front of people, you're not born with it. Some people are more talented than others, but you got to practice before you're good at this stuff. So when I'm coaching people and I notice, hey, you're pretty good at that, they go, oh, okay. And then they get more motivated and the trust builds a little bit and that coaching relationship gets stronger and it all starts coming together. So I look for reaction to pressure, their confidence. Of course, I look at their work products, how they deal with mistakes and self-correction, what paths they didn't take, all that kind of thing. All right, so this is my coaching space diagram. It's a mandala that I study to remind myself of all the elements, to get myself in the right headspace so that when I do my coaching, I'm doing the best that I can do. All right, well, that's my little walk through test coaching. I hope that you're getting the idea that test coaching is not necessarily some kind of vague thing, but something that is specific, with specific skills, specific elements, revolving around human contact, and leading toward liberation. That's my goal. When I coach someone, my number one concern is liberating them. My goal is to go from a coach-student relationship to a peer-to-peer relationship where they're coaching other people and they feel totally free, completely free. Freedom is my goal. And I hope it is yours too. Instead of having the goal of creating a zombie army of followers, I hope your goal is set people free. That's the real point of coaching. Thank you very much. I can take questions. If you'd like, I don't know how much time I've taken. Did you actually wave at me like you said you were gonna? Because I Maybe I went over time.
That's okay, that's okay. I think everyone was enjoying it, so I don't know how long it is. So, I suppose we've got a lot of questions for James, so if you want to ask a question, just raise your hand.
You can also challenge me. I like it when people challenge me.
So, can I just ask then, in the situation where you come in as a coach for a number of days to do a workshop, when you are a test manager and you have that coaching responsibility on a kind of ongoing basis, what do you think the differences are?
The difference between coaching on an ongoing basis in a team as a test manager and being a visiting coach?
Yeah.
There's a huge difference that must be immediately acknowledged. When I coach people, first of all, I get 3 to 5 people a week who I've never heard of before that contact me and ask me to coach them. About 3 to 5 people. I can't deal with all those people. So what I do is I put them through a tournament system. I know you're thinking Hunger Games. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. A tournament system it's very simple. I give them a task that's hard so that only 1 out of 10 people are going to come back from that. Only 1 out of 10 people are even going to try. The rest are going to go, oh, well, I don't have time for that. So here's a task I might give someone. I'll say, yes, I can coach you. Please write me 1,000 words, an essay of 1,000 words or more on what your test process is. Thank you. We can start when you deliver that to me. Now, of course, if they do it, it's very helpful. I read it, and I get to know who they are. Or I'll point them at something and say, test that, give me a report, and get back to me. There was a kid who's a pizza delivery boy who decided he wanted to be a tester for some reason and found out about me, and he came to me, and I did that with him, and he came back surprisingly, shockingly, with no technical experience with this beautiful report. Well, I mean, it wasn't as beautiful as it could be for one of us who's practiced it and all that, but for a guy who delivers pizzas and has never done this work at all, it was full of words that made sense and insights, and I was really shocked. So I decided right there, I'm going to give him my time. He has earned my time. But if you were a test manager, you cannot take that attitude. You cannot foul your nest. These people are going to be here. You can't just say, I'm going to fire you if I don't like you. Unless you run the company, you can't do that. So what you have to do when you are coaching day in, day out a group is, first of all, I suggest that you establish the culture. And I would do this, and I have done this, in a pretty overt manner. I say, if you join this group, to be a part of this group, I need you to be moving forward, getting better. You can get better in any way you want to get better, but you have to be getting better over time. I want to help you get better. I want to help you be more marketable, because I know you're not going to work for me forever. So I want your experience here to be something that is building your career. I also want you to enjoy yourself. But let me tell you, if you've decided, I don't really want to learn anything, I'm just comfortable being where I am, you can't stay in my group. You can't stay in my group unless you're moving forward in some way. Okay? I want ambitious people in my team. And there's other people who want this job if you don't want it. So let's just establish that. I don't want to have an argument about that later on. I want it to be clearly established in the beginning that I want to work with ambitious testers. I'm not going to tell them what their ambition has to be, whether they have to learn to code or learn some domain expertise or get better at mathematics or be a public speaker or whatever, become a manager. Whatever their interest is, I want to help them toward that if I can. But I want them to have some interest. With that as a background, then I'm going to work in a gentle way because I want them to succeed. I need them to succeed. So I want to have them have some early success experiences. I'm going to be really careful about using the pressure at first. My colleague Ken Kaner once came to consult for me when I was managing a team at a company called Smart Patents back in the 90s. And he watched my team interact with me, and he told me that one of my testers, a young lady that we just hired, she was a secretary, and they made her redundant. And so I said, oh, come over here and be a tester. And she said, okay. She was struggling in the team. He said, I think she doesn't want to be a tester. I said, I think she wants to be a tester. She's just not, confident at it. And he said, I really think she doesn't want this job. Well, I think she does, Cam. I guess we have a difference of opinion here. He said, try this experiment. Do you think that her work is acceptable? Well, not really, but, look at better. So here's what I want you to do. James, call her into a meeting room and tell her, your work isn't good enough. I need you to improve it. Just tell her that and, give her some details. So I did. She quit the next day. She came in the next day before I got there, quit to my boss. She wouldn't even quit to my face. Wow. I think she didn't really want that job. But I was being so gentle with her that I couldn't tell. So I learned a little from that, to not make sure that I put some pressure on people and not be too worried about that. But I am nervous about putting too much pressure on and then making people feel. Well, here's another thing that happened. I once put pressure on somebody and they were trying to do the testing the way I wanted it to be done, and I found out later that they were going home at night and testing at night, at home, unpaid, just because that's the only time they could test the way they wanted to test. And I felt so bad when I found out about that. It's like, you feel so strongly about this that you're giving me all this free work and not telling me about it just because you really, really wanted to do it in a different way than I'm demanding that you do it. Maybe I've been a little too tough. Maybe I need to dial back that pressure, because I really don't want that from people. Maybe I would need to take a little gentler slope towards what I wanted instead of insisting on more of it up front. So that's the big difference. You've got to be really careful with that social relationship, because if you mess that up, you can't just say, see you later, like I can as a visiting coach. And bear that in mind. It's a long-term relationship. Any other questions or challenges? That was a great one. Yes?
How do you coach the customer?
How do I coach the customer?
Yes.
I don't even know what that means. Let me have to figure out what it means. Coach the customer. So I have the customer, and am I trying to teach them how to use my product? Am I trying to... maybe what you mean is... Tell me if this is what you mean. Maybe I have a problem with a client of my testing. I'm trying to do testing for them, and they ask me to do testing a certain way, and I think that's wrong. And I'm trying to nudge them into asking me for different things or having different expectations. Maybe they're saying they want me to count test cases, and I absolutely refuse to count test cases, and I have to kind of coach them about that. Is that maybe what you're...
Exactly, or giving them a different view on what testing is about.
Right. Oh, that can be a very delicate situation. I will tell you the first thing that I think about in that situation, and that is, I've got to find out what is motivating them. Why are they asking for this? Sometimes, actually a lot of times, if I find out what the motivation is, I can offer them an alternative that solves their problem, and they're happy with that. But at first they don't tell me what the real problem is. They tell me something else is the problem, and I have to tease out of them, why do you really care about these test cases? Well, I just thought of get a sense of what the status of the testing is. Oh, I have a way of giving you the status of the testing. I can make you feel comfortable about that, and there won't be any test cases at all. Can I just show that to you? Can I just try that? Are we willing to look at it as an experiment? The other thing I say is, let's try an experiment. The word experiment is really powerful. I say in groups when I'm running them, I'll say there's two kinds of things. There's policy and experiment, and everything's an experiment. If you think something's policy and you don't like it, let's turn it into an experiment. Let's experiment with something else. And what I mean by experiment is, at some point we can stop and say, is this working? Because if it isn't working, we can change it, right? The reason for our methods, our procedures, our tools is to help us do this work, not get in the way of our work. And people use it against me. They'll say, can't we try Cucumber, that tool you hate, as an experiment? And that would work. I would say, all right, youngster, let's experiment with that, and I'll bet you we will see that it's a perfectly useless tool. And I have a real problem with Cucumber. I think it was created by people who aren't testers and who don't care at all about testing and just wanted to make a cool tool so that they could have an excuse for not testing. That's what I think. And how do I know that? Because I wrote something like Cucumber in 1992 for exactly that reason. And I've had this whole dalliance with all that stuff, domain-specific languages. We didn't call them DSLs back there, but in Apple Computer and at Borland International, I had this grand vision that was very cucumbery, and it crashed and burned hard. And I realized that I was trying to make a Tower of Babel, and I was punished by the fates for that. I wasted a lot of time thinking that I could write code to get myself out of having to test. And that drives a lot of my passion about testing right now, is that I tried that and it didn't work. But now if some new generation comes along and wants to try it, what am I going to say? Don't try what I did that taught me so much. I'm going to have to say, yeah, let's try an experiment with Cucumber, see how it goes. I'm going to have to do that. They will get me to let them do that if I'm in charge, but I will hold them to it. I will say in 10 days we're going to come together and see how it's going. And you're going to have to show me that this is really worth doing. Or we'll see, maybe there's an alternative. So let's take an experimental attitude. So I often use that experiment line with customers if I'm trying to get them to try something that they maybe aren't comfortable with yet. I always try to make sure that my customers believe that I care about them and their success. And there's one really good way to make your customer believe that, and that is to actually care about their success and their feelings and all that. Because I personally am so bad at lying, I have to take that road. Because, you guys who are really good at lying, I don't know how you do it. I always get my lies mixed up, and my face is always wrong when I tell lies, and I'm just horrible at it. So I've just decided truth has got to be the way to do it. So I'll just actually care about people. They'll see that I care about them. I'll grow in my credibility, and then they say, instead of telling me what I have to do, they'll say, what does James think? What does James think we should do? Let's ask James, that credible tester that we've come to trust. We'll ask him what he wants to do. So that is a kind of a managing of the energy of the customer, I suppose. All right, anything else? Yes, shout it out.
So when you're talking about having to deal with emotions, right?
Yes.
Do you set limits or boundaries for how much you have to deal with them? It seems like it's been a lot of time trying to deal with these emotions.
Do I set limits or boundaries?
Yeah.
Well, I have had problems. I have had people who got kind of intense and started making me pretty nervous. It's only happened a couple of times where I touched or learned about students like deep emotional difficulties, and they were creeping into all the stuff we were doing together, and I wasn't really prepared to deal with that. Because it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of work. So I have had trouble with that. I don't set any sharp boundaries personally, because partly is I feel like I should be able to handle anything, so I guess I have a sort of pride thing that I should be able to handle stuff. But I'm not a professional psychotherapist, and I know every professional psychotherapist sets boundaries, and that's a big part of their professionalism, is to really understand those boundaries. Sometimes coaching creeps toward psychotherapy, and you got to be aware of that and just decide if you want to continue that relationship, I suppose. However, in general, I find that I am comfortable dealing with all kinds of emotions. I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but I feel comfortable. I think because I'm older now, and it's like, oh, she's crying. I'm used to that. I'm not surprised. I had that happen in a class. Let me just tell you this story. I had this happen in a class in England last year. I'm having trouble judging people's ages. I don't know why. Maybe she's getting older or something. Everyone looks the same age to me now. So I thought that this girl was like 30 years old. It turned out she was 21 or something, and this was her first job. She had just graduated, so she had no work experience. I thought she was maybe 30, and I called her up to the front of the class to do an exercise in a certain exercise where you get no instructions whatsoever. You just have to deal with it. So I threw her something to test, and I said, test this, and she said, oh, what's it for? And I go, I don't know. I just found it, I don't know. What am I supposed to do? I don't know. Anything you want, I guess. Just test it. Are you testing it yet? And she just kept asking these questions, and I was not giving her any information. There's a reason why I wasn't giving her any information, but I could not explain that reason to her without disturbing the exercise. And then I noticed a strange wetness in her eyes. You know, like her eyes seem shinier than they normally do. And I realized, oh no, wait. And then my mind flashed, and I said, she actually looks younger than I thought she was. Wait, maybe this is her first job experience. Wait, maybe she was a very good student in school. Maybe she's used to acing every test that she's ever taken, and suddenly I've given her something where there's no rules. There's no way to get full marks. And she's realizing with fury in her heart, how dare he humiliate me in front of all my friends. So I had to take emergency evasive action. With that guess in my mind, I said, oh, let me ask you something. Are you recently graduated from university? Yes, she was. Are you used to getting very, very good grades? Oh, yes, she nodded. She couldn't speak at this point. I said, oh, then I just need to tell you, you must be very upset with me right now because there's no rules and you feel like anything you can do is going to fail. I have to tell you, you're doing great. You're doing fine. Yeah, there are no rules, and you're doing fine. This is exactly what's supposed to happen. You're okay. And so she nodded, and we went on. So I feel good about myself that I noticed before she actually ran out of the room, because that has happened. I've had people just suddenly burst into tears and run from the room in the middle of a class, and I've learned from that, though. You know, I've learned from that. I'm used to this, and I'm better than I used to be. So as far as setting limits, here's a limit that I once set that I no longer set. I used to only pick men older than me to have come to the front of the class and do my exercises. Because if they cry, nobody cares. They don't go, James is such a meanie. They go, what's wrong with that guy? Also, it's never happened. I've had them get angry with me, but I've never had them cry, or collapse or anything like that. So, but then this very delicate-looking, attractive-looking, weak-looking female once told me, why don't you just call for volunteers? Just call for volunteers, and then if someone wants to volunteer, they'll volunteer. And that way, your stereotyping, won't hinder somebody's development. So I said, okay, I'll do that. Are you going to volunteer to do this? And she said, okay, I will. And she did. She got up, and she was really good at it. And I decided, all right, that's what I'm going to do. And that's mostly what I do now, is I don't call somebody up. I say, who wants to volunteer for this? It's going to be an exercise. You're going to stand in front of the class. I'm going to bombard you with questions. Anyone want to do that? And not many people of any kind want to do it. But if I am silent for long enough, someone will volunteer. Someone always volunteers, because silence is completely unacceptable, apparently. And so I just go, who's going to volunteer? And sometimes I've gone 30 seconds, just stand there, wait for somebody to, and then someone goes, I guess I'll do it. I'm like, okay, all right, come on up. And I have learned something from this. I learned something from this by unsetting that boundary. By saying I am not going to prevent delicate-looking people that I'm afraid of hurting from coming up. Well, that was a boundary I set for emotional reasons, and I decided to unset it. I learned that there is a certain kind of personality that seems vulnerable, that seems delicate, but is actually like the willow in the wind who bends it but does not break. And and I've seen this demonstrated. These people come up and they're all smiley and everything, and I start putting lots of pressure on them, and their reaction is, "That's a very good question. I will try my best to answer it." And I'd say, well, I need a better answer than that. And they'd say, "Okay, I'll try to give you one." And then just whatever I say, she won't get upset. She's just not upset. She's just not judging herself. And I'm trying to get closer to her and say, like, "I need the answer now." And she's like, "Okay, I'll try." And like some kind of cartoon kids show host, she's unflappable. And so I learned that I can't tell from looking at someone whether they're going to be able to handle this and do well. I can't tell. And if I just let you decide what pressure you want to put yourself under, then it'll work out. I also give people safe words in my class now. I have 2 safe words. Pass just means I'll immediately go to someone else. And help. If you say help in my class, then I will immediately change my tone and become more, a little softer, more collaborative. So I let people know right at the beginning, not right at the beginning, but close to the beginning of the class. I say, by the way, there's 2 magic words you can use. And that, I think, makes people able to set boundaries for themselves instead of having me set boundaries for them. Maybe that's what I've been trying to say. I've learned about helping my students set boundaries rather than having me pre-decide what the boundaries should be. And maybe that's because I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable taking risks. Those are fun questions to answer. I know I give long answers and all that, but it's fun. Yes, sir?
It's basically able to work face to face because you pick up on the body language, or it shouldn't matter.
I much prefer to work face to face. The reason why I do a lot of my work on Skype as text is because when you coach a lot of people, you can't remember what you did. So I have all the records of all my conversations when I do Skype text. So if someone is gone for 6 months and they come back and they say, "Remember me?" and I go, "No, but I'm sure I have you here somewhere," then I can look through what I did in my last sessions with them and I'm ready to go. Whereas if it's face to face, I just have to tell them, "Remind me what we did. Did I already give you this exercise?" So I'm trying to learn to do it over text, and I think I'm pretty good at it now. But I think it is far better to do it by voice. If you want the high quality, fluid experience, better to do it by voice or face to face is probably much superior. Yes.
At what point does a student become a coach?
A student become a what?
A coach.
A student becomes a coach. Ah, yes. Well, when I'm always thinking at all times, when should this student become a coach? When I want to make sure that they are moving toward being fully in charge of themselves. I would say really early on, actually, I would suggest to a student that, why don't you try coaching somebody else? And I just did this with you. Why don't you try doing it with someone else, and then see what happens. So I think that even when you're quite junior, and in fact there are certain schools, certain educational theories that encourage us, like Montessori school involves the little kids helping littler kids, and Sudbury Democratic schools are little kids helping littler kids. It's this whole idea of whatever level you're on, there's someone else that you can help, and then that will drive your own education. It's just a basic idea. But as far as someone becoming the coach of the coach, that's that's an interesting moment when the teacher-student relationship becomes a peer-to-peer relationship. That's a really important moment that needs to happen. And it's very similar. If you're a parent, you know that as your children grow, this must happen between you and your child. This had to happen between me and my son, who's 21 now. And it happens kind of in stages. And it's really tough for the parent because you keep thinking of your child as 5 years younger than they really are. Because that's the last time you were learning, really. And you just go, oh, that's what my son is like. He's like this. And you just stick with that. And he changes, and you don't notice it until he gets upset with you for saying, like, oh, Dad, of course I want to go out to eat. Well, you hate going out to eat. I was 9. I didn't like going out to eat when I was 9. Now I like, oh, okay. He likes social events now. Now he likes them. Beat it into my head. He's not 9 anymore. So those moments have to happen. And I suggest that you do this with your children, or you do this with your people you're coaching, that you periodically try to do an event where they have to lead you. They do some kind of leadership. They set something and you have to do it. So it might be as simple as saying, I'm always giving you exercises. Here's your next exercise. Come up with a challenge that you can give me. And then you can give me an evaluation of how I did. Because, I've got to maintain my credibility. I need to practice testing, and I don't practice testing enough. So come on, help me practice testing. So you basically just drag them into the role of coaching you. And then you can debrief on that and give them some feedback and find something that did really well and say, I like how you did that, etc. And then they start feeling like a true peer. And then it starts just going free-flowing back and forth. So between me and Anne-Marie, or me and Michael Bolton, my other colleague, who used to be my student, he will call me up and say, I have this exercise I want to try out on you. And I go, okay, I'm ready. I'm going into student mode. So start. And then I become the student, and he's trying to do his teaching thing on me. Or I'll do it to him, and we just go back and forth. And if one person wants to go into lecture mode, then we see that, and the other person lets them go into lecture mode and goes into audience mode. And we just feel that out. It's just like any other kind of relationship. In a healthy relationship, each party in the relationship feels what the other one needs right now. And if you need something more than they need something, then they realize that and they serve you. Or if they need something more than you need something, you realize that and you serve them. And it's this nice back and forth thing. I think that all these relationships need to turn into peer-to-peer relationships eventually, or there's a stunting of humanity that's happening there, right?
Just wanted to ask you how.
What's your name?
Sushma.
Oh, Sushma. One of the ladies I was referring to earlier. The one who stood her ground. Yes.
I just wanted to ask you, how do you keep your mind so active throughout the training? I know as a coach, students can't expect a coach to be blanked out when you ask a question. So how do you keep your mind so balanced?
How do I keep my mind
Active throughout
active?
the training? Any tips that you want to share?
I have a few tips I can tell you about keeping my mind active throughout coaching. First of all, personally, I'm driven by one motivation above all, and that's not money, unfortunately. My wife wishes it was money, but it's not. I have a client that's I have a contract with. They'll pay me $300 an hour if I do certain work, and that's still sitting there. And my wife really wants me to do that, and I kind of want to do it too, and I could use the money. But what drives me more is impressing people. I want to impress people. Whenever I did well in school, it was because I liked the teacher, and I was trying to impress the teacher. And if the teacher was impressed and I liked the teacher, then I would feel really, really good and I want to do more. And that's why I left schools, because they weren't impressed, or they weren't impressed enough, or I didn't want to impress them anymore. It was that motivation all went away. So I'm constantly trying to impress these students. I want you to say, wow, he's good. So that's one thing that keeps me really energized. The other thing that keeps me energized is I'm so fascinated by what you are going to do next. I am really fascinated. I watched you do an exercise where you took over the room and led everybody. I didn't know you were going to do that. It's like watching a football match where somebody does a bicycle kick and you go, whoa, I didn't see that coming. That's amazing. Oh, who knows it was going to be 5-0. That's incredible. And so part of what makes my mind stay active is I'm genuinely fascinated by watching people learn and study and grow, and also say things that I didn't expect them to say. Anytime somebody says has a thought that I didn't have first, I think that's wonderful, and I learn from that, and I make it part of my database of things that I could say. So those are two things that keep me active. And maybe one more thing is it's very complex. I'm trying to watch 5 things at once. It's really hard to do that. So being aware of all the things that I'm trying to watch and knowing that I need to focus on all this stuff very quickly, it automatically calls forth all of my powers, I guess you could say. So those are 3 ways I try to keep my mind sharp. I hope that is an answer to your question. Okay. Cool. And someone else? Yes.
When coaching, how do you deal with those kind of like automate everything mindsets?
How do you deal with the automate everything mindset when I'm coaching? Okay, if someone comes to me and they just think, oh, I just want to automate everything. The first thing that I need to do, I believe, is to get them to be specific. Like, okay, so what is the thing you're going to automate? And I know that if I walk down that road Socratically and get them to be specific about what they want to do, what they're going to find out is that they are either not able to be specific. Oh, I want to automate testing. Oh, tell me what testing is exactly. Tell me in mechanical terms everything that a tester does. And they can't do it. So I go, you seem to be having trouble explaining what it is. It's kind of like someone who has a dream. I want to write a computer program that I can fall in love with and who will fall in love with me. Like, that sounds wonderful. What's the algorithm for that? They don't really know. Like, yeah, that's the only problem with doing stuff like that is you don't really know how. If we knew how to automate everything, that would be great. But we don't really know how, do we? So I don't necessarily need to say, no, and hit their nose with a newspaper, I don't have to do that. I can say, let's do that, and if we do that, how would we do that? And then their idea will fall apart under its own weight. The second thing that I do is I give them certain exercises which highlight the unautomatable, unmechanizable aspects of testing. So, for instance, ask them about an expected result. What's your expected result if you do this? And they give me a little expected result. And I say, that's not all your expectation. There's more to it than that. And they have a real hard time telling me all their expectations. And then they have nothing more to say. And then I add a whole bunch of expectations onto the end of that every single one of them, they say, oh, I agree with you. Oh, I agree. Of course it shouldn't explode, James. Of course it shouldn't burst into flames, James. And so then at the end I say, you want to automate this, but you can't even tell me all of your expectations. That means that whatever you automate is only a fraction of what you know. So maybe we can't automate what a tester does. Maybe we can have tools that help a tester do what a tester does, but that's not the same thing as automating what a tester does. So that whole idea of automate everything is based on an incredibly simplistic notion about what testers do. And I just need to expose that by getting them to try to do some of that. And then it falls apart. And then I try to shift it. After it falls apart, I'll shift it from a automate everything to a how can we use tools to support people in doing great work idea. And that is something we really can do. And we can do lots of things to have tools help people do great work. And at that point, it's like they've had a chiropractic readjustment and they can talk about all the things they wanted to talk about, all the cool tools that they wanted to talk about. Absolutely, let's do that. But now they think about it, if they've been listening and if they have intellectual integrity, they have to admit, that's not automating everything. That's supporting people with tools. It's the Iron Man approach, where you have the Iron Man suit and the human inside of it, rather than the Iron approach, which has no human inside of it, which is a much less interesting movie. Well, I guess it's the Age of Ultron. I got it. All right, maybe one more. Max.
James, I'd like to know, in the example you gave us about shallowness,
Yes.
what happened afterwards? Did he stick around for more, or did he just say it's too hard?
I really wish I was prepared to answer that. That would take me 10 minutes to answer based on searching, because I have the entire transcript, and I can locate it, but I should have anticipated and been ready to give you that. I did not anticipate that question. Next time, I will be ready to answer that question, because I don't remember. This was several years ago, and I have a feeling that it didn't end well. See, there are what that comes from is there's a whole type of interaction that I have often with Indian testers who've been brought up in an Indian testing culture of just write stuff down and follow instructions, and I have to try to break them out of that. One of the problems is they don't speak English well, and so it's very hard for them to write long sentences. They write really, really short sentences. So I ask them, like, how do you test? And they go, from requirements. Like, okay, and what do you mean by that? Testing? No, what do you mean by that? And say it in more than 4 words. From requirements, testing. It's maddening. Occasionally, I have had to say to people, I am getting upset. Maybe this goes back to the boundaries thing. Well, if I feel like I'm getting angry as a coach, I need to stop. And occasionally, I feel like I'm getting angry because I feel like someone's not even really trying. Maybe they are trying. Maybe it's just a language thing. But I go, my time's important, and I'm asking these questions, and you're ignoring them. So I'll say, I feel myself get angry. That reaches a limit. That reaches a boundary. And I'll say, I think I'm not the right person to coach you. I think you need to see one of my students, and I'll point them to Damien Citaditos and Marie Jarrett. I'll send them to someone else, and I'll say, when they tell me that I should coach you, then I'll start coaching you again. But go and talk to them, and that way they can get some experience dealing with this kind of person, and that's good. So I never want to think, no one will coach you and you will die alone. I don't want to give people the sense that you're totally hopeless and and you should stop trying and die. I always want there to be an open door of some kind. I think it's horrible when someone has had all doors shut in their face. So I crack open the window a little bit and I try to close the door in a polite way as I can. But if you do find yourself getting angry as a coach, you need to stop. You need to get out of that situation. You always need to be calm and cool. I mean, excited, but calm and cool as a coach, or you will be abusing people. You will begin to make sarcastic comments. And I've done this sometimes. I've looked back and realized I'm just getting sarcastic. I'm just insulting the guy now. That's not right. So I hold myself to a higher standard as a coach than that, and when I feel that coming on, I have to stop. And those of you who see my Twitter where I insult people on Twitter, that's not coaching, okay? I insult people on Twitter who are claiming to be experts, and they're not experts. They're claiming to know everything, and they don't. And I'm dealing with them peer-to-peer. But I never want to do that when I'm a coach student. You're holding somebody's, it's like being a dentist and you have dental instruments and you're in their mouth. You better be careful what you do. There's an ethical issue there. All right, I think that I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you very much for letting me come here and rant. I love this. I feel healthy. All viruses burned from my body.
Thanks very much for that, James. I think we should give him one more round of applause, everyone. had some fun today.
Don't ask someone to be standing there.
Okay. Well, that's it for this version of the presentation. We're about to go on to some networking now. But feel free to hang around and just meet and greet some new people, some really great minds. So, don't forget our next meetup is in September. Just have a look at the meetup.com website.